Rolling. Renegades. Andre and I had this big idea.
Growing.
I had to have the people who didn't believe in me.
Between one day and the next, everything changed.
Nurses know how to solve shit.
Renegades.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Well, welcome. I'm Karen DeMarco. I'm the founder of Renegade, and this is Ed Harrold. I'll say a little bit about me and then how it's going to go. And then, well, Ed's going to say a little bit about himself, and then I'll kind of give you a overview and we'll dive right in. And as soon as possible, I'm going to get off of I don't know if you all are watching the screen, but we have a little bit of a PowerPoint, but I hate tiny heads in the corner of PowerPoint. So we're going to just go through the basics and then kind of let Ed riff. But my background is been a nurse for 30 years, started off in ICU, ER, and flight nursing, spit myself out of the medical system partially in 2011, started a private patient advocacy business, and then full-time 2016, I think, 17, I worked my last ICU shift. And that's around the time I met Ed and his wife, Wendy. Wendy is my partner in Renegade, and Ed invented breathing. He'll tell you more about that in a little bit. But that private patient advocacy shizzle, it's a great career if you ever want to, like do a side extra as a nurse. It's so rewarding, but that kind of evolved into corporate wellness. And then I did some research, published that, and then did programs based on my research and taught. And then in around 2021, my nursing license was up for renewal, and I was procrastinating, as most of us do. And I went on a hike and was listening to a podcast, and it was the juiciest. It was James Nestor. He wrote a book called Breathe, and I thought, holy cow. It just occurred to me, I'm doing 30 hours of continuing education every 2 weeks. I've got skin growing on my ear pods. And then I just thought, this is just not fair that we don't get credit for the things that we're, our pathological curiosity and the things that we're inclined to do naturally. So that was kind of like the inspiration for our Renegade to start CE by podcast. We started one, my partner who has Antra was my original partner, and she's recently passed away, unfortunately, my best friend. But Wendy has taken over her big shoes and filled her big shoes, and we are good to go. And now we've got all kinds of big podcasts coming on board where nurses can listen to these cutting edge, evidence-based new stuff that takes 10 years to trickle into the medical system that you don't hear about. And there's innovators and creatives and pioneers in the medical field that we don't even hear about it for 10 years. And nurses can now come and listen to podcasts from these people and get CE credit. And I often tell Wendy, I think of nurses as the white blood cells to fix our sick medical system. We have the greatest amount of surface area. We are the teachers, we are the innovators, we are the MacGyvers and the pioneers. And I think if we can get this kind of information that we hear on podcasts to nurses for CE credit, I mean, nurses are always the ones that are changing the medical system, but I think we'll be on warp speed if we do that. So as I said, I met Ed and Wendy in 2011, and Ed is a author, and I'm going to let him talk about himself, but basically, I'm going to check the boxes of the Ultradian rhythm on the PowerPoint so we can call this a CE, and then I'm going to let him go because he's going to take us all into a deep dive, not only what the Ultradian rhythm and what it is. It's going to be in a format of, this is what you got. This is how it works. Here's how you can support it. And Ed's going to take us deep, not only for what you can do to increase your health, your resilience, your focus, and your productivity, but teachable strategies that you can give to your patients to totally transform their health. And it's free and it's so simple. So Ed, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks so much, Karen. It's great to be with people of service in these challenging times. So for the past 30 plus years, I've had a educational performance coaching business, and it's been based predominantly in first learning how to control our breath, to control our physiology, to control our psychology. I primarily worked in three separate buckets. I worked for corporate America and athletic America and healthcare America. I'm one of the few non-MDs in America that can give CE credits through George Washington Medical School for stress reduction and peak performance. My work's been studied by Harvard Medical School. It's just something that's right underneath our nose. We really don't take our breath very, very seriously. And it's actually really hard to learn how to use our breath and use it in a way that we can get out of our own way mentally. We can stay centered and grounded and control the present moment. We can keep our heart rate and blood pressure under control. We can metabolize and burn fat as we go through the day. We don't have to store fat. And it really is the secret weapon behind the scenes that's making all the energy systems of the body perform at the highest level possible, being energy efficient, while at the same time understanding that you want to get a lot done in your life, but there's a pace to how you do it, and the breath is going to show you how to do it.
Amen, brother. Thank you for that. Folks, I'm just going to share my screen. And page 1, chapter 1 of Ultradian Rhythm, Ultradian Stress, and what we're here for today. I'll say this again at the end, but by Friday, the syllabus to this course will be up on our Renegade. You'll be able to just take you'll find it. I'll send, anybody who's participating in this webinar, you'll get an email with a link, and it'll be loaded onto your profile. You'll be able to just take the quick evaluation. It'll take you about 30 seconds, and then you'll have your continuing education certificate for this. So the objectives, the outcomes. Objectives are for me, outcomes are for you. We just want you to have a basic definition of what an ultradian rhythm is and how it relates to the human basic activity rest cycle. And we're going to explain how just ignoring or pushing through the body signals to rest that come from our ultradian trough creates massive amounts of inflammation, and that ultradian stress compounds into disease. And it's so simple. It'll make you laugh of how to avoid that and how to teach that to your patients. We're going to discuss the cultural influences. Why do we ignore the signals from the body? We eat when we're hungry. We drink when we're thirsty. We move when we're restless, but we don't rest when we're tired, because the cultural influences say, burn the midnight oil, fake it till you make it, push on through. And it's having some very detrimental effects to the health of all human beings in the Western culture. And then Ed's going to give you some strategies that, at least one at the end of this, you'll be able to practice it, adopt it into your own life, and teach it to your patients. We're going to go in this basic format. Here's what you got. Here's how it works. And here's how you can support it. And then at the end, we'll have some questions and answers if anybody has any. So first, we'll just start at a high level. What is an ultradian rhythm? Well, most of us have heard of circadian rhythms. That's the day-night cycle. And most of us have heard that within the night cycle of the circadian rhythm, there's a basic 90 to 100 minute cycle where, you have the twilight where you start doing the twitching stuff, and then, you go into REM. And then you have the deep and healing sleep. And then you come out and you might wake up and take a pee. And then it goes back into that rhythm. And hopefully you get 3 to 4 of those in a night cycle. Infradians, I'm just going to mention them because it's part of the rhythm. Infradies, below or longer than a day. These are lunar cycles, seasonal cycles, menstrual cycles, anything that's longer than a day. Circadians are about a day. And ultradians, ultra Ds, beyond or many times per day. These include so many things: heart rate, breathing rate, blinking, swallowing, peristalsis, anything that has a rhythm in the human body or in nature, actually, bees, the rhythm of the bees where they go and collect pollen throughout the day. I don't know. I'd come up with another one here. Oh, Julie Harden. She's already here. Oh, maybe she has to do a different. Okay. But throughout nature, we see infradians, circadians, and ultradians. And the synergy and the symphony and synthesis of the human ultradians all kind of culminates and is harmonized into our basic rest activity cycle, or what we've been taught is the B.R.A.C cycle. I'm going to give some example, just a quick example of something that totally saved me when I was a new mom and trying to figure out what the heck the kid was crying about. I learned the easy: eat, activity, sleep, and then the Y is for the mom to rest. Once I found that out, what the baby's, not the schedule, not okay, it's 4 o'clock, it's time for the baby to eat, the basic rhythm of the baby, then I could interpret the language of the baby. And it was such a miracle to understand the language of the baby. But we all, adults, children, our pets, we all have this natural rhythm throughout the day. So what we're going to be focusing on today is something that we're not taught in nursing school, or we're not taught in medical school: the ultradian rhythms and the basic activity rest cycle. So that same 90 to 120 minute cycle that goes on during our sleep goes on during the day. Now, we started to find out about this when in industry, when the United States started getting in during the industrial age. Well, about, people would wake up at 7, and then around 8:30, you'd have a coffee break, and you'd kind of push through that natural tiredness you get. Well, when people started, planes were crashing and people were falling into the industrial machinery because during that ultradian trough, it lasts 5 to 120 minutes. You have the arousal, your peak performance, and then it goes down into about a 5 to 20 minute lull. When you naturally get tired throughout the day and you're like, oh, you want to go for a cup of coffee or a stimulant, or you need to take a walk, or you get restaurant, or if you're ever in the post office and you see people in line with that 7-mile stare, that really comfortable, you are switching from a beta brainwave state to an alpha state. We get spacey, we get kind of unfocused, we get relaxed, and we push through it. But we're going to get into more about what happens. Why do we get that lull? So for about 90 to 120 minutes minus 5 to 20 minutes is, that's when the body is what am I saying? You're outputting energy. And then after the output of energy at the top performance, the peak performance, ultradian, so the culmination of cellular damage that happens, your hippocampus in your brain can only fill up so much, and that information needs to be tagged and marked and sent to the appropriate place for new brain connections and neural pathways to be created. And cells need to divide. We need to detoxify. Cells need to take out, our body needs to take out the trash. All of the products of inflammation we need to take out the trash. So what happens? Oh, nasal dominance switches from, Ed's going to talk more about this. Nasal dominance switches from left to right or right to left. And brain dominance switches from left to right or right to left, opposite of nasal dominance. So much happens during this ultradian trough that what happens? We naturally get tired. So the symptoms of the ultradian trough: you get tired, you get spacey, the 7-mile, I have spicy, the 7-mile stare, you can get irritable, kind of distractible, restless, hungry, and then the body is calling for us to rest. Now, what happens, especially if you're a nurse and you're working, when we were, cavemen, we just go and lie under a tree and take a nap. Human beings are multiphasic. We are not biphasic as we naturally live. You stay up all day for 12, 18 hours and then you sleep at night. We are supposed to take naps during the day. There's supposed to be one longer cycle and then many short cycles during the day. But we've gotten away from this with our Western culture, and the consequences we're going to get into are not good and cause massive amounts of inflammation. And we're going to talk about, more about that on the next slide. The healing response, that's when during the trough, you get cellular repair, you get cellular division, our neurotransmitter and hormone buckets fill up. There's a lot for the body to do. I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but I just want to stress that when the body needs to rest, there's a reason. And why do we eat when we're hungry and drink when we're thirsty and move when we're restless, but we don't simply rest when we're tired? Ed, I want you to just talk about right here to bring you in, and because some of the stuff that most people don't think about is the other rhythmic things in our basic rest activity cycle.
Well, thank you for that. So this rat race that we're all living in, if life is a race, it's a race you want to come in last. You don't want to die. And it was just, 50, 60 years ago, and you could link breath with movement. Your brain was not overwhelmed with emails and phone calls and fax machines and text messages and all. See, right now, inside one breath, in and out, gosh, there could be 10 things that come to your prefrontal cortex. And this disturbs the brain. When the brain's disturbed, the body just isn't something to carry the head around. Like, the body is like really smart, and it's always in the present moment. So the body has rhythms to it that the ego, at its own peril, can bypass. Say, oh, I'm writing this email, I'm just going to finish this train of thought, and your body's like, well, I got to go to the bathroom. And it's like, well, I got a couple more sentences and let me get this out. And, you're like, something goes and somebody else distracts you and I got to finish this thought. And the body's like looking up saying, I got to go to the bathroom. Like, okay, we're almost there. Just, another paragraph. And the next thing you know, you're running through the house like Wonder Woman trying to get to the bathroom because your body alerted you 45 minutes later of something that it needs to do. It cannot be bargained with. This is not creating health. This is creating stress. This is firing off your amygdala. This is turning off your digestion. This is weakening your immunity. It's becoming harder to alkaline your blood. All sorts of harmful things are happening in these moments. And it takes a long time to land the plane after these events. So updating our software, which we're always doing in our brain, begins by first looking at what your breathing does to your autonomic nervous system. So let's just start at the basics at the 101 level. Every animal on Earth is breathing through its nose its entire life, unless it's hunting or being hunted. The fastest animal on Earth is the cheetah. It breathes through its nose. It runs 80 miles an hour. You go down to the gym and you got folks hyperventilating through their mouth who can barely walk. And you look at their face and you go, that's not health. So understanding that you want to get the breath through your nostrils, through your sinuses, you want to get it down into the lower lobes of your lungs, where there's parasympathetic, oxygen-rich, hemoglobin-rich nerve endings that are going to support a rest, calm action opportunity in this present moment. Now, if you're just breathing shallow through your mouth or your nose into the upper lobes of your lungs, the upper lobes of the lungs are completely different autonomic functioning. That's all sympathetic, cortisol, adrenaline, fight or flight, freeze, digestion stops, the HPA axis fires off in your brain. It's air raid sirens going off. You get disconnected from the body and you're like, whew, that was a close call. Then it takes you like 10 minutes to get back to like a centered, grounded place where you can deliver professional services that you're going to be proud of, when you leave work. So number one, it's getting the breath low and slow. And if this is new to you, giving your mind something to do when you're learning something new so you're not distracted is cool. So if you just want to physiologically follow the diaphragm vertically down on your inhale, follow that muscular contraction, that push down where you create the vacuum of drawing fresh oxygen into the lower lobes of your lungs, this is a good place to start, because the thoracic diaphragm is your primary inspiratory muscle, but it's also the primary muscle for posture. It straightens your low back. It allows you to circulate more oxygen, reduce inflammation. It can hold the head straight. So when your head tucks, you're cutting off circulation to the most conscious area of your brain, and you're in the moment, but you're probably working with your cerebellum, the hindbrain, the subconscious of stuff that's already happened. And that's okay, but it's not your best. Okay. So thinking about the thoracic diaphragm, number one is your primary inspiratory muscle, the primary muscle for posture. And it's an organ in regard to all the responsibilities it has to keep your upper organs happy, healthy, vibrant, longevity, everything that you're looking for. If you're a liver gallbladder, if you're a stomach spleen, if you're a kidney, if you're a nerve cell in your enteric nervous system, right below the xiphoid process, and this is where you've got a ton of serotonin and dopamine, and it's going to get massaged when that thoracic diaphragm thickens on that inhale. This is something that we want to be looking into for better health, for greater vibrancy, stress reduction, and a healthy heart rate. So if you can just take one thing from this program, number one is whenever you have a spare moment for the rest of your life, remember Ed said, slow inhale, low and slow into the lower lobes of your lungs and activate this solar plex region of your body while you straighten your spine, skull on top of the cervical spine. Let's see if we can bring our awareness to our face, and don't strain your eyes. Again, it's going to cut off circulation to your two prefrontal lobes. Don't tense your low jaw. Again, it's going to cut off blood flow to the most awake area of your brain. As this diaphragm muscle becomes thicker and has more range of motion, you're going to have more energy. Your ribs are going to become more elastic. And that's important because your lungs are amazing, but they're not muscle. They're tissue, and they're only going to be able to bring you enough energy based on the strength of your inspiratory muscle and the flexibility of your rib cage to expand like gills all the way up to rib 1. So remember, get that thoracic diaphragm down on the inhale. Stabilize your spine to stabilize your mind. When you inhale slowly, that is for the mind. Wake up and make the best choice you possibly can for you first, everybody else around you second. And then as the air rises up through your lungs, like you're filling a vase with water, feel these intercostal muscles that are the muscles in between your ribs, feel them fire and contract. And how much detail can you feel as you bring this fresh energy, this fresh moment from the outer world into your inner world, stabilize your inner world, and then deliver that stability in professional services to everyone around you. So there's just a little bit of information about what's happening 20,000 times a day on average, something called inhale.
So that was like, spoiler alert, Ed just laid the foundation for what we do about it. But the fact that how many people, I mean, every time he starts talking about the details of breathing and diaphragmatic breathing and all that stuff like that, you can't help, like, just focusing on your breath changes it. I don't know about you, but it does for me every single time. So Ed is laying the foundation of what to do. I'm going to go back a little bit about what happens when we don't follow the body's simple signals of the ultradian trough. When the body's saying, you got it?
Yes.
Okay. So I love this slide. By the way, if anybody has ever heard of the MTHFR pathway and the polymorphisms that cause inflammation, that's this little place right here. This is what the body is handling it with our ultradian rhythms. It's not our job. You can only conclude by looking at that gobbledygook that it's not our job. Our job is just to listen to the signals of the body. That fatiguey, unfocused, spacey feeling is your body going, hello, hello, I need to pee. Like Ed was, I need to pee. I need to rest. I need to get up from my computer and walk away. I need to leave the nursing unit. I need to get away from the station. I need to change the channel so that I can just tend to what I need to tend to for regular biologic function. I need to fill up the hormone neurotransmitter buckets. I need to rebalance the blood sugar and biochemistry. I need to flush out and detoxify. And what happens when you ignore those signals? Well, not only does the body not get a chance to do that efficiently, but you are sick. There's to the mind, to the body that lives in the present moment, there is no reason, because there's no tiger, there's no famine, there's no lightning storm coming. Your ego is overriding from the cultural norms. Your ego, hang on, just admitting, our ego is overriding the body's signals to rest. So it thinks that there must be something. The amygdala thinks, okay, I'm sending signals to rest, and the human is not resting. So there must be something wrong that I'm not detecting. So it gives you a flood of adrenaline and cortisol to run. You know, there must be something wrong because I need to pee, I need to rest, and I'm not doing that. So not only does your body have to do the normal biological functions it does during an ultradian trough, but now it thinks there's a tiger to run from. So your dips are going to feel dippier and almost pathologic. And I'm going to give you an example in some research I did with people with chronic fatigue syndrome. The dips feel dippier and the recovery out of the trough takes longer. And now it starts to look pathological. And now you start worrying about, am I getting sick? What's that a symptom of? Yeah, you know, and it's just because we're not listening to the signals to rest. And not only that, you know, the brain has to do so much. Our poor bodies are trying to do this. It's like, can I just get 20 minutes max, you know, to do this stuff? And we're saying, no, the body's going, okay, there must be a reason. And now you're adding an inflammatory stress response on top of all the work that the body has to do. The accumulation of repeated ignoring of the signals to rest during an ultradian trough, I kind of already covered this. Inflammation based on your genetic Achilles heel can look at first like the following, which on Friday you can come and review all these. We don't need to go through each one, but basically you're adding an inflammatory stress response that's going to look different when it accumulates. Ultradian stress accumulates. It looks different in every person, but we have all these diagnoses of exclusion now, you know, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, chronic pain, mood disorders, insomnia. Depending on our snowflake of a genome, whatever the chinks in our armor is how this ultradian stress is going to show up. And eventually you're going to have immune dysfunction. You're going to be more vulnerable to things like Lyme disease or long-term things that the body can't heal from because it's just trying to keep up with all the things it has to do, all this it has to do in an ultradian trough that we are not allowing it to do by simply resting every 90 to 120 minutes when the body tells us to. Diminishing returns, eventually you get things like upregulate the polymorphisms that cause cancer, diabetes, heart disease. When you can't take out, when your body can't detoxify and take out the trash, you get the accumulation of plaques in the brain, in the vascular system, etc. IBS, when the body, like if you're not resting, IBS, the accumulation of ultradian stress, the body is going to send that stuff on through quickly because you're not resting. There must be a problem. So I'm going to get rid of this food because it takes a lot of energy to digest. It takes a lot of energy to socialize. I'm not going to go through each one of those. Excitotox. So when you don't have when your body doesn't have a chance to refill the hormone and neurotransmitter buckets as well, then you start getting mood disorders and those kinds of things. Excitotoxic, biting the nails, pulling the hair, picking the nose, that kind of stuff. I'm going to let Ed take over after I just give you a couple of concrete examples of how this disrupts our hormonal system. So our master hormone is pregnenolone. Vitamin D, sunshine, there's a thin layer of cholesterol under our skin. The sun shines to our skin. We get vitamin D, which is a cofactor from cholesterol, derive our master hormone, which is pregnenolone. I might be saying that right. Pregnenolone. I'm going to say pregnenolone. We're going to go with that. All right. Now picture this. If you're constantly pushing through the signals for the Ultradian Trough, in addition to your mother-in-law and your coworkers you can't stand and all the other stuff that we deal with on a daily basis, but just the simple signal to rest, and we ignore that. The body goes, uh-oh, something's wrong, and prioritizes pregnenolone that we need to make all of our healthy stress hormone, DHEA, and all of our sex hormones. It prioritizes that to make cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Cortisol signals the body to release glucose from the cells. Our blood sugar rises because we need energy to run or to build or to find food. The body doesn't understand why we're not resting. So cortisol is released. Blood sugar goes up. We're not burning that blood sugar because the body doesn't know it's the ego that's causing the stress response because we're not resting when the signals, with the signals to rest. And then downstream, we start getting low on and imbalanced in all of these sex hormones. This causes infertility, erectile dysfunction, PCOS. I've had so many people, here's a good example. Why am I not getting pregnant? I should be pregnant. We've been trying for months and I'm not getting pregnant when it's all this pregnenolone, because every day, all day long, why am I not pregnant? Why am I not pregnant? And then we try, fertility drugs, and then we try IVF. And then what happens? It's not just anecdotal because it happens all the time. We decide to adopt. There's a baby. And we've got Irish twins, one adopted and one conceived, because now we're not stressed out all day long, every day about not getting pregnant. So pregnenolone can go and rebalance the sex hormones. Here's another small example. Tyrosine, we have an epidemic of hypothyroidism. The thyroid, everybody's on Synthroid or, some kind of derivative of that. Well, we need tyrosine to make thyroid hormone. But if we're constantly telling the body there's a tiger to run from, there's something wrong, simply by just not resting when the body signals us to rest during an ultradian trough, the body sends us a surge of cortisol for the HPA axis and adrenaline from the sympatho-adrenal medullary axis. We've got the SAM and the HPA axis. Adrenaline comes from the SAM. We need tyrosine to make epinephrine, and norepinephrine and dopamine are adrenaline, all are catecholamines. So the body's going to prioritize tyrosine when we're constantly telling it there's something to be afraid of, there's something wrong, that's why we're not resting. And our tyrosine is going to be prioritized for adrenaline, and we're going to be low on our thyroid hormone. All of the hormones we need for our thyroid. Hence, our Western culture is kind of prioritizing tyrosine for stress. And everybody's getting hypothyroidism now. I've had so many clients of mine when I've kind of just shared this, and we have strategies like Ed's about to share, and we abide and heed our body's signals to rest. They get off their thyroid medication. I'm not saying, not early. Don't just quit your thyroid medication for these strategies, but you will see that eventually the body very, very quickly, when you're not telling it there's danger all the time, will kind of get back in balance right quick. So what do you do when you're a nurse? Yeah, like if we were, back in the olden days when we were cavemen, or even 200 years ago, before our culture was as it is, we were able to just, when we got tired, we just go take a nap. We take a rest. Siestas. Europe still does them all the time. And it's funny, the religions, this is so much a part of the human biology that it has been adopted by religions. The major world religions have adopted this 120-minute rest cycle. The Vespers, Muslims, so many religions pray multiple times a day during the typical Ultradian troughs, that when human beings live together in community, what's it called, Ed, when birds get entrained? I think it's entrainment.
Entrainment.
Yeah, same with like menstrual cycles, when a bunch of women are living in a sorority house, or like I have 3 teenage daughters and we all, have same menstrual cycle. When human beings live in community and our egos don't take over our biology, we all are on kind of the same cycle. So I'm going to kind of let Ed take over. I'll interject a little bit, but we've learned about the ultradian rhythm and the basic rest activity cycle. We've learned about what happens in our modern culture, what's happening to all of us, the accumulation of ultradian stress and the inflammatory issues that happen downstream of that. So great, Karen. Great, Ed. What do we do about it? I'm a nurse. I work night shift, or if my body's telling me I need to rest, and, my patient's having an emergency, or I haven't given my 4:00 meds yet, etc. What do I do about it? So I'm going to let Ed kind of take it away, because what good is knowing about it if you can't do anything about it?
All right. Well, let's just continue to build on what I was speaking of earlier. Number one, start to introduce to your brain the way you were breathing when you were a very young child. So it's through the nose, it's in the lower lobes of the lungs, it supports your spine, the back is closed, the chest is open, the face is soft, and there's a relaxed alertness as you slow the inhale down. So the inhale itself is sympathetic. It's designed to create slight arousal in the brain, get yourself prepared for the moment, and be as perfect as you can be. But if you're already in sympathetic overload, wouldn't it be smart if you could hack your system, the pace of your breathing, and begin to breathe slower on the inhale, bringing a parasympathetic response, some software, to something that's already hard-driven sympathetic. So just start to introduce to your brain, what is it like? What does it feel like when I consciously breathe low and slower than I normally do with a straight spine? Now, the exhale. The exhale comes from your abdominal muscles, your rectus abdominis, your obliques, your transverse abdominis. And in the process of exhale, these muscles contract and they pull back on your gastrointestinal organs. The thoracic diaphragm evacuates the belly and it's pushed up by the abdominal muscles underneath the lower lobes of the lungs, which we mentioned earlier are imbued with oxygen-rich, parasympathetic, serotonin, tryptophan, relaxation, vagus nerve, fat burning, rest and digest, all that beautiful stuff. But guess what? Your exhale muscles are very weak. We have forgotten about exhale in our culture because we're trying to keep up with the Joneses in our ego, and we need energy to do that. So we've forgotten about the exhale, and we're just this shallow little inhale culture, and everybody's going slightly bonkers on each other.
Keeping up with the Joneses or Mrs. Jones in room
Yeah,
19.
so we've forgotten how to push back against the sympathetic switches. We've kind of in this temporary insane mode of like more is better. So this is going to take some mental practice for you to strengthen your exhale muscles, stay with the calming, the relaxation, the cooling, the pushback on the nervous system and the vascular system of the body. So training yourself to inhale slower than you normally do. And then how could we create pressure without straining so that your exhale could become longer than your inhale in length? How would we do that, Ed? So we would inhale slowly. When you get to the top of the inhale, just hold the breath in for 2 seconds. I'm not recommending the face turn blue. I'm just recommending allowing pressure to build in the lungs. And this pressure will have to be displaced and ventilated. So now you've created more leverage and pressure so that the exhale can be longer than your inhale. That signals to your brain the all clear is on. The air raid is over. It must be safe because Ed's exhaling longer than his inhale. If his exhale was shorter than his inhale, that's danger. Something must be wrong. I can't trust this moment. We need to be on high alert because something's going to eat me. So as soon as you exhale longer than your inhale, wow, the amygdala says we're safe. When the amygdala says we're safe, guess what happens now? Now the body naturally, organically begins to burn fat rather than glucose as its fuel source. And what is fat? It is an endurance fuel. And if you're working as a nurse, you are in an endurance business, a mental endurance business, a physical endurance business, and an emotionally triggered endurance business. So you need to be like a triathlete or one of these super endurance athletes who runs marathons. What do they want to do all the time? They want to burn fat and store glucose. How can you do that? Well, all you need to do is slow down your inhale, bring parasympathetic qualities to something sympathetic. Exhale longer in time than your inhale. The brain, the all clear sign goes, you go from the lower brain, fear, to the higher brain, I am awake, I can make choices, I am the CEO of me in this moment, and you begin to find flow. You begin to find rhythm. And in flow and in rhythm, everything begins to sync. So thinking about slow motion inhale, pause, and then exhale longer than your inhale and start to retrain the respiratory centers of your brain so that when you're not thinking about it, it's going to happen on its own. You'll be so much more resilient. You're going to have so much more energy. You know, when you got up this morning, your body's got 30 days of fat stores that it can burn as fuel. Amazing. You've got about 90 minutes of glucose. And when the glucose is gone, it's not coming back till after you go to bed and come up the next morning. So when that drops, it's either good day, bad day. Mistakes happen. We need to save the glucose for the brain and the executive centers of the brain. We need to burn fat in the body and we need it to be endurance. What does that mean? It means I don't get too high. I don't get too low. I kind of stay in that space in between the peak and the trough. And I'm much more balanced from the soles of my feet to the crown of my head, how I move my body, how I move my mind, and I control the situation. The situation doesn't control me because now I've taken control of what? My heart rate. What does that mean? It means that your breath rate per minute is going to reflect your heart rate. So the faster you breathe, the higher your heart rate is going to be, the higher your blood pressure is going to be. the more thoughts you're going to have. The amygdala is going to take over. It's not going to trust the moment. Digestion begins to shut down. The body starts to store fat because there's going to be an intruder. There's going to be a war. There's going to be an event. Your body floods with cortisol. Immunity drops. Now we've got big problems. Now, this is okay if you're being chased by a polar bear. But if these are just events at the workplace, or it's just a stress, remember, stress will always take the path of least resistance. Stress doesn't come up with any new strategies or ideas. It knows you. So when your energy is low and you're unplugged from the body and something goes wrong and you don't have the energy to clearly be neuroplastic and deal with the situation, it's going to deal with you. And it's just really, really uncomfortable because we've kind of given away our power first internally, and then we start to give away our power to people, places, and things. And then a whole host of what Karen was just going over begins to occur. So when you can control your breath, for most of us, it's meaning slowing it down. Get your heart rate down. Why is that? Well, heart disease is the number one killer. What does that basically mean? It means that you might be 40 years old, but due to improper breathing, your heart has beat it as much as somebody who's 70. Your heart doesn't know the difference. It just responds to the environment that we create for it. So once you start to keep that heart rate under control, it can manage your pressures. What's managing your pressures? The diaphragm muscle is managing the fluids and electricity of the body. So again, it all comes back to that.
Can I just interject
Get in there.
And yeah, I love this. So we just went through like, oh my gosh, I can't rest at work, and what am I going to do because now I know that. So the breath, and check me if I'm speaking out of turn or saying anything wrong, but the breath is like the CEO. So even if you're hitting an ultradian trough, as long as you're starting to feel tired, but there's no way you can get off the unit. There's no way you can take a nap or whatever. You've got like 6 patients or 2 sickies or something like that. If you lengthen the exhale, you're signaling, you're overriding any stress that not resting was doing. You're signaling to the body, all is well, because there's no way you could be having a long exhale if there was something to run from or danger around. So
Right.
you're saying everything's okay just by lengthening the exhale. And then you're also tapping into fat metabolism so that the body has plenty of energy to do the detoxification and the neurotransmitter balancing and all that stuff, because you're tapping into fat stores so you can continue about your shift. You're telling the body everything's okay. So you don't have to. So Ed, are you saying you don't have to have a longer exhale all day long every day, but it's a good kind of prompt to start practicing it when you're feeling that tiredness, when you're feeling that ultradian trough, and you lengthen your exhale through the 5 to 20 minute period of fatigue and ditziness and kind of spaciness. And you're also kind of, am I right to say that?
Yeah. So the great part about controlling the breath is that you're controlling your physiology. You're controlling your hormones. You're controlling your heart rate, your blood pressure. And this gives you a much greater command over the choosing part of your brain about how you're going to choose to show up in the moment. So science says as soon as you begin to control your breath, in other words, you're breathing unconsciously, life is great, blah, blah, blah. As soon as you begin to control your breath, the hippocampus of the brain lights up like a Christmas tree and goes, wow, Ed must want me to pay attention to something important is going to happen so that I'm present. I'm not unconscious with my eyes open. So as soon as you begin to control your breath, the executive learning centers, along with the 2 prefrontal cortexes, might give you information about how you can interact with a patient or the present moment differently than the way you did last time. Because when you are working the night shift, you have to be super energy efficient. Everything needs to be on point. You can't be wasting energy. So all the things that we would do during the day need to be amplified and perfected in the evening because it's always about conserving energy. It's always about strengthening immunity. How can you be in a stress situation, but from a physiological standpoint, be in a recovery mode?
With the breath, right? Or should I not have answered that?
We always want to be pushing back against the environment. So we have this circadian dance between light and dark. And there's clocks in our eyes, these optic nerves that read the light. It's not necessarily about your genetic code. It's about your zip code, where you live. What is the longitude and latitude of the light that you have available to you at any given point during the season? And 3 millimeters behind your eyes, you've got a pituitary gland that's running your hormone system. It's right below your pineal gland, which is running your melatonin. So important to dopamine levels and feeling good about ourselves. So you got this big picture of this circadian light dance and the deeper clocks, these rhythms that we run off of. Now, these clocks are telling your nasal cycle, one, your right nostril on the inhale is sympathetic. It's based in heat, cortisol. Your left nostril on the inhale is parasympathetic. It's tryptophan, serotonin. It's cooling. Left nostril feeds your right frontal lobe. Gets a little spacey in there. There's not a lot of words. There's not a lot of math up in there. If you're trying to balance your checkbook and your left nostril's more open than your right, it's going to take a while. Your right nostril, a little different. That's where you analyze, strategize. That's how you get from point. That's who's made you the person you are today. Everything that you've mapped out in your life has come from the strategies and concepts that you chose in your left prefrontal lobe. Now, based on what season you're in and the light that the eyes pick up, this is going to tell the autonomic nervous system and the ultradian rhythm which nostril to be more efficient as you move through your waking hours. So if you're in the northern hemisphere in the winter, in that higher latitude, your right nostril is going to be more efficient on your inhale than your left.
That's
and in the summer,
crazy.
If you're in North America and you got all that light and heat for free, well, the right nostril turns off. And the left nostril turns on. Why? Because you need to keep it cool in here. So this is fundamentally your HVA system. This is your heating and air conditioning unit that keeps you at 98.6 in the genius of what your eyes pick up in the morning, what the eyes pick up at sunset, and then the nasal cycle will work off of that. And what is your nasal cycle? It's a word that says ultradian rhythm. Now, these valleys and troughs, this all comes through here. It's very rare that both of these nostrils are at peak efficiency. When they are at peak efficiency, you'll notice you're at your best. You're working with both prefrontal lobes equally. It isn't just one brain. Think about everything you've done in your life when your nostril cycle has not been equal. You've only used half your brain to get everything done you have in your life. Now, when you can start to use breath control and breath control strategies, and you can hack that ultradian rhythm and get both nostrils at 100%, you're going to have whole brain messages. You're going to light up the corpus callosum in the frontal lobes that separate the two prefrontal lobes. There's a molecule that's going to be secreted called anatomine. And anatomine is a cross-lateral molecule that allows the right prefrontal cortex to talk to the left and the left to talk to the right. Because when these nostrils are more open than the other, the right side of the head doesn't even know there's thoughts over there. And when you're thinking, the thoughts don't even know there's feelings. They don't even talk to each other. So getting into these performance states is something that's breathing is all about. And when do you notice you're in 100% complete nasal cycle? Do you ever come home from a walk or you left the gym and you're driving home and you're wondering why you feel so good. Well, guess what? If you put your fingertips underneath your nostrils, you'll notice the wind that's coming in and out of your nostrils is equal. And that gives us that euphoric state of fearless performance. In other words, there's no anxiety, there's no self-doubt, there's no angst or criticism. It's just good being me.
It's good to be me.
So
you're going to teach us how to integrate, how to do that?
yeah. When you come to your workstation, let's talk about being ergonomically correct. This is important. Posture begins with your feet. How are your feet touching the earth? There's neurons in your feet that are signaling to your brain what departments of your brain to light up based on how your feet are touching the earth. If you look down at your feet and you see your right foot has turned out more than your left, unless you've been in some sort of an accident, that probably means that you have a tendency to overthink a lot of things that you shouldn't be overthinking. You're disconnected from your intuition. If you look over at your left foot and you find your left foot splayed out, it probably means that you can get pretty emotional pretty quick. Like there's not a lot of resiliency around some of the heavier emotions. So if you want to reprogram that, it begins with your feet. Getting your feet parallel, unless you've been in some sort of a car accident or some sort of debilitating accident, you want your feet to be the way they were when you were a kid and have them parallel and straight. And as soon as you have them parallel and straight, and you have most of your weight on your heel plate, because it's larger, your calcaneus is larger than your ball joint, you're alerting the amygdala that you're not going anywhere. I'm going to be here. I'm not running away from something. I'm not running towards anything. I'm just going to be here. So being ergonomically correct means feet on the ground. Maybe the legs are slightly engaged, the skeletal muscles, so you can draw the attention of the breath and the brain into the larger rods of the body. You can draw up on your buttock, draw up on your reproductive organ, or draw up on your pelvic floor, just getting blood flow at some of the areas of the body that we have a tendency not to bring attention to when we get older. But get the feet on the ground and straight. Maybe squeeze the legs or squeeze the buttock, and then look to get length in your spine. You want to be erect. You don't want to be over and rounded, leaking energy out your back. You don't want to be cutting off the two prefrontal lobes of blood flow. You want to be perfectly straight. So this might take a little bit of time for you at the workplace, but it's time well invested. You want to be perfect, 0 point gravity against your environment while you're doing your work. You know, as soon as that head goes down, you cut yourself off from what's awake. The highest point of your head against gravity is your cerebellum, and that's where your subconscious is. And that's great. You can get a lot done there, but it's hard to pivot there. It's not really into pivoting. Pivoting occurs here, new awarenesses, hits the hippocampus. Hippocampus says, how? That's how I can deal with this now. I don't have to be like this now. And it goes back and goes into the hindbrain and starts to rewire your subconscious. So getting yourself erect. Now, as you notice your inhale through your nose, this helps keep you erect. Feel that vertical push down. Now, what's funny is if you breathe through your mouth, notice what happens when you inhale through your mouth. All of your upper body weight now isn't supported. It collapses down in the lumbar 4-5. Digestion stops. You start to have low back issues. Start to round forward. Chin comes down. Not a professional stance for you. It's not a healthy stance. So just notice the difference. When you breathe through your mouth, feel your upper body collapse down onto your low back. When you breathe through your nose, feel your low back lengthen like an accordion. Feel that simple but powerful adjustment. And then you just ride that inhale. You don't even have to breathe into your upper chest. You don't need to. Okay. If you can just breathe to the midpoint of your chest, these lower lobes of the lungs. So from the center, the floating ribs So when you inhale correctly, feel the floating ribs pull down and flare out. Doesn't that feel great on your liver gallbladder and on your stomach spleen? It's a wonderful little massage so that these organs don't get cancer. So these floating ribs, when you follow that diaphragm down, it's a major push and the floating ribs flare out with it. Air comes into the lower lobes of the lungs and it's relaxed air. It's not that cortisol air. So there's some situational awareness there of the skill sets that you've cultivated. Now, when you get to the inhale about to here, you don't need to take it any higher. You don't need to get stimulated artificially with the cortisol. There's probably enough sympathetic switches going off. And then hold the breath in for a 2 count. Now, when you hold the breath in for a 2 count, the first thing you might notice is that you've stopped thinking. Now, Ed, that must be bad. I've stopped thinking. Everybody's overthinking. You can't learn anything new when you're talking. So when you add that brief breath hold, the brain becomes super alert. It notices you've taken the breath away, so it pays attention. It's completely present in the now moment. And now from a physiological standpoint, you've created enough pressure without strain to create a longer exhale than inhale. You ride that air. So when it comes out through the mouth, not good. It's going to dehydrate you. When it comes out through the nose, the air comes up through the head and out through the brain. So you're not depriving the brain of oxygen. That panics the brain. Remember, you're exhaling as much oxygen as you're inhaling. CO2, O2. So CO2 is like the miracle drug for endurance workers like yourself who are in a result-oriented business under high pressure. CO2 is the drug that's going to make you superhuman, relaxed and calm almost overnight, but it's got to come out through the nose, not the mouth. The mouth is a shallow exhale. CO2 builds up and it begins to create toxicity in the brain and in the blood, reduces oxygenation and circulation. We don't want that. Let it come out through the nose. Now, there's some great new science out of Australia that 80% of our fat loss or our inflammation reduction comes from the exhale and out through the nose. The other 20% comes from urination, evacuation, and sweat. So the most efficient way for you to remain physically healthy is to exhale through your nose longer than your inhale. And if you're looking to lose a pound or two, this is the easiest way to do it. And you don't even have to change your diet. All you need to do is exhale longer than your inhale. Practice this, and you'll lose a pound every 7 days. You'll lose 50 pounds a year if you stick with it. So thinking about...
Well, if that's not an incentive to practice, I don't know what is.
What I'm trying to tell you is this is easy. Okay, this is easy. We can do this. We want to empower ourselves first by relaxing the systems, pushing back against our sympathetic switches that have basically turned us into something that we don't need to be anymore. And then at the end of the exhale, hold out for that 2 count again. Create a little gap at the end of the exhale before you inhale a fresh moment. Bring that last moment to closure. Get that silence again. Get that silence. Silence is a good thing. Stillness is a good thing. And then on the next inhale, inhale with intention. Link the breath with what you're trying to do mentally. Link the breath with what you're trying to do physically. Link the breath and use your emotional intelligence because you love what you do or you wouldn't do it. You're just like me. Like it's not even work. We just love to do it. So thinking about incorporating slow motion inhale, pause, slow motion exhale through the nose, pause. Do this when you're walking, in between appointments. Do this in between floors when you're going up and down stairs. This breaks up stresses in the body. Do this and teach your patients this. This will really turn the healing mechanisms of the DNA on in the body through the relaxation response in the body. And then it turns off the worrying mind of being in the hospital and the sky is going to fall.
I love that you just said that. It's like we were talking about it the other day when we were talking about this webinar: anticipation, preparation, and execution. APE gets you back to your ape state, but with executive function to mitigate the stress response in no matter what environment you're at. But the time to practice this stuff is 5 to 20 minutes after work, or 5 to 20 minutes when you wake up in the morning. There's a really cool thing about that a lot of people don't know about the beginning of the ultradian rhythm and cortisol. When you wake up in the morning and the natural sunlight comes in through your rods and cones, it signals when you open your eyes for the last time, or you wake up and you don't go back to sleep, your eyes are open. The light that comes in signals the body to start what's called the cortisol awakening response. Your cortisol is highest, should be highest during the day, 30 minutes after you wake up. So we, and our, again, cultural influences, oh, I'm so groggy, gotta get another cup of coffee, why am I so groggy? Well, if you just wait, do this experiment. It's pretty cool. If you just wait for a half hour after you wake up, you won't need coffee because your body needs to get going during the day. It's got to, like, all systems go. Your cortisol is ramped up and it's highest 1/2 hour after you wake up. And then it goes along a diurnal curve. The diurnal curve looks like a ski slope. So cortisol goes like this throughout the day, and it should be lowest at night. Now, when we resist our ultradian signals and we get these cortisol surges through the day, that's when we start to get adrenal fatigue, because it should be like this, but we're going, the body's saying, I'm tired, rest, or, we're not resting. So you keep getting these surges of cortisol, and then eventually the adrenals wear out, and then you have a flattened diurnal curve. You just go, eh. I could show you some pictures of mine, what mine looked like. It was just like flatlined. I had no energy all day long. And that's what adrenal fatigue is all about, because we're ignoring these signals to rest. But what Ed is teaching us is that if we can't rest because we've got 6 patients or 2 heavies, or we've got a caseload, whatever kind of nursing you are, and it's just not practical to go and take a nap under a tree. You can tell the body that all is well. You can be the CEO of you by lengthening your exhale, keeping yourself in a parasympathetic response, tapping into fat stores so that your body can do all the stuff that it needs to do in the Ultradian Trough, and go about your business in a more relaxed and focused, more integrated state, with both brains firing, both prefrontal cortexes firing together. So and that's when you get the goodies. Like, the dirty little secret is that's when you get great ideas, because you keep your brain waves more in an alpha state. We're taught that, theta is where your brain waves are at when we're kids, until about the time where your first molars break through. Somebody hits record. George, my word for God is George. George hits record, and you're just taking it all in. And that's when you're writing the program for who you're going to be and how you're going to be the rest of your life, whether it serves you or not. And then around adolescence, we go from theta, we're more in alpha. And then most adults operate from a high beta, stressed out brainwave straight all day long. Well, when you lengthen your that's like the sympathetic brain, that's the stressed out brain. When you lengthen your exhale, you signal to your body all is well. You cannot be in a sympathetic response if you have a lengthened exhale. Correct, Ed? And
Correct.
So you're also bringing your brainwave to the most creative the creative alpha brainwave state. And that's when you get, like when you're in the shower and you're zoning out in the shower, or wherever your brain or your mind is quiet and you get those innovative ideas or aha moments. That's usually a low beta or an alpha brainwave state. With these simple techniques and just being mindful of your breath, lengthening your exhale, pausing on your inhale 2 seconds, you can initiate an a low beta or alpha brainwave state. So you're more focused, more productive, happier, less stressed out, and you don't have the accumulatory effects of ultradian stress. Simple.
Beautiful.
Give us another one, Ed. Give us another one.
Well,
So
let's continue to work on the foundation that we've built, which is obviously feet on the ground, straight spine, relaxed face, slow motion inhale, hold for 2, slow motion exhale, hold for 2. Now, this is relaxed energy. This is going to last longer. Imagine you get up every day, you've got like a cord of wood that you can burn, for potential energy. The idea is to get through the day. Number one, don't go through the whole cord, right? How can I be the best I possibly can be and only burn a half a cord, and I can build up so when the end of my shift comes, 3 or 4 days from now, I'm just going to have energy for me and my family. So, you want to conserve energy. So this relaxed energy like this, slow motion inhale, hold 2, slow motion. You can already feel this happening in your body. You can feel the relaxation hormones and you can feel the neurochemistry softening. The thing is with adults, we're so wiped out that we can't stay awake in the theta state like when we were 1 to 7. We pass out. We go from beta to a little bit of alpha, then boom, delta. Yeah. And then we wake up when the melatonin secretions stop at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it takes energy for you to be you. And we want the energy to be relaxed. We want the blood to be alkaline. We want the ideas to be fresh. And it's almost like you got to remind yourself, hey, relaxation is a good thing. Let's focus on
what a novel
QOL,
concept.
Quality of life, not quantity of life. Quantity is not going to last for long if you don't have quality health markers. So as you inhale and hold for 2 and exhale and hold for 2, just say you're at your workstation, something happened, and you kind of got to let it go because there's like all this acid in my upper abdomen from a uncomfortable moment. I'd like to get rid of that. So when you inhale and hold for 2 with a straight spine, push your thoracic diaphragm down like you're trying to go to the bathroom and evacuate your bowels. Notice how you push that acidity down and it boomerangs up into your lymphatic system. And then on the exhale, hold out for 2, squeeze your core, draw your abdominal muscles back and flush those high levels of acidity out of your organs. So it's inhale, hold, push down. Exhale, hold out, squeeze back. And you'll do that for maybe 15, 20 seconds. Notice there's a completely different hormonal cleansing in the mind body. You're back now. Take an inhale, reset yourself, and it's behind you. It's done. It's not coming back. It's not going to ruin the rest of your shift. So remember, we can move this diaphragm muscle basically 8 different ways, not just down and up, but we can inhale. And when it's down, we can hold in and press down and amplify the phrenic nerve, which is the motor nerve of the diaphragm. The diaphragm's huge, but it only has one motor nerve, right? So we have to strengthen the tone on those 2 heads as it comes into the diaphragm that separates the chest from the belly. So as you press down, you amplify that push down, you're creating more electrical tone in the phrenic nerve, and it's relaxed energy.
Is it normal when you're practicing the inhales? This is because my diaphragm isn't strong yet. If I inhale, hold, and then press down like I'm pooping, and then I let it go, and then exhale all the way and hold that for 2, I get lightheaded. Why am I getting lightheaded?
So that's a higher level that's a higher level of CO2 in your brain that you're comfortable with right now. But notice it goes away very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So as you begin to allow higher levels of CO2 in the brain, the amygdala doesn't panic. And as it doesn't panic, it's like an athlete. So say an athlete, they start their running program, and, they can only, after the first week, they can only go so far. So 3 weeks goes by and they can go further. Their heart rate's lower. They have a faster time. How does that happen? Well, what happens is the body and the brain begin to process CO2 in a healthy way. They circulate it rather than freezing the system. So it takes a little bit of time to sell that to the brain that you're okay. So look at what just happened. You just put yourself in an exercise routine in a chair. Now there's no residue of wear and tear or an injury to any muscle, bone, or joint, and you became more CO2 tolerant. Fascinating.
It is fascinating. And I'm gonna open it up for questions, see if anybody has any questions, and give the promised goodies at the end if anybody wants to know about these glasses. It's kind of a bonus move. But if you want to know more about Ed, we did a podcast together recently. Whenever we introduce a new content creator or podcast partner on our Renegade, we do a podcast with them just to learn about who they are and how they got to be the pioneer renegade that they are. So you can listen to that one for a continuing education credit, or Ed has a 25 hour, isn't it 25 hours? 25 hour breathing, breath is medicine course.
Breath is medicine.
Breath is medicine for healthcare professionals. 25 credit hours, and it will absolutely change your life. Just this one. I always think it's so cool. Like, just the thing about changing your breath, being more aware of it, and just breathing in, holding, and going like I'm gonna poop. I mean, there's just the fact that I'm getting lightheaded and my body isn't accustomed to that level of CO2. It's like immediate results, immediate returns. I know I'm building my tolerance already. And this combined with the Ultradian science. If you want more about a book I highly recommend, if you want to take a deeper dive into Ultradian rhythms, Ultradian science, Ultradian stress, and how really harnessing our natural biological rhythms and teaching this to your patients, anybody, as an adjunct to diabetes education, post-surgical recovery. Because if you're in a stressed out space all the time and you have to heal either post-surgery, or you're trying to recover from a heart attack, or so many things that we educate our patients about, this is an egregious, a lack of simple biological science that nurses, I mean, it's just criminal that we're not taught this stuff in nursing school, or even in anything after, in the typical CE selections that we get every 2 years. Ultradian rhythm science is not only will it increase your own health, happiness, and human potential, but it's so easy for our patients to understand, because everybody has evidence of their Ultradian trough, and all you're doing is bringing awareness to it, encouraging people to rest, heed the body's signals to rest. You eat when you're hungry, you drink when you're thirsty, you move when you're restless. Why don't we rest when we're tired? But for healthcare professionals who don't ever always have the opportunity, here, I'm going to show it to you, and this will also be in the show notes. We can harness the power of the CEO of our body, and the power of our breath, just as a starting point. I mean, you take Ed's Breath is Medicine course, it'll change your life and that of your patients. So highly recommend. But I'm going to open it up. I will get here. Wait. I don't know who just asked that, but it's called.
Julie did.
This is an old one. It's called the 20-minute break. And it just has all the science and research from the psychological discovery by Erickson. He was like a master hypnotherapist. Nobody knew how he did what he did until they found out what all he's doing is tapping into the Ultradian trough when the brain naturally goes into an alpha state. So the 20-minute break, Ed's Breath is Medicine course on our Renegade. Check out the podcast we did a week ago. And I'd love to open it up to any questions that anybody might have. If you want to go a little bit deeper into Ultradian rhythms or the physiology of just even the simple breath that Ed showed us. And if nobody asks any questions, I'd love for you to give us a bonus exercise, Ed, and how to integrate both hemispheres of your brain with another simple technique. Any
So
questions?
one of the things that we can do, we can change the flow of energy by channeling the breath through one nasal channel at a time. So for me, I can channel it. I'm going to use my thumb and my ring finger on my right hand. I'm going to curl in my first two fingers right onto the base of my thumb. And for those of you that know Chinese medicine, this is a meridian here that dilates the lungs, the alveoli sacs. It's also great for nitric oxide, which is kind of a miracle drug. So if you just take your thumb pad and close off your right nostril, straight spine, feet on the ground, close off your right nasal channel. And as you inhale, just inhale up the left nostril as slowly as you can, and see if you can feel the energy of your breath move into your right prefrontal lobe. And when you can't inhale anymore, take your ring finger, close off the left nostril, release the thumb, slow motion exhale down the right nostril. And then inhaling as slow as you can, right nostril, trace the energy into your left prefrontal lobe, and you'll notice it's different there than the right. And then close off the right, release the ring, exhale left. This is done really slow. Inhale left nostril as slow as you can. Activity in the right frontal lobe. When you feel complete, close off the left, release the thumb. Exhale in slow motion down the right nostril to completion. And then inhale in slow motion up the right nostril and focus your mental attention in your left prefrontal lobe. Just observe it. And when you feel like the inhale is complete, close off, release, exhale down the left. Smooth, steady, rhythmic. And then again, up the left, into the right lobe. Then hold the breath in for a 2 count. Close off the left nostril, release the thumb, exhale right. Inhale up the right nostril as slow as you can. Focus your attention in the left lobe. And when the inhale is complete, hold for 2. Close off the right, release the ring, exhale left in slow motion. And then hold out for 2. Inhale, hold in for 2. Close off, release, exhale right. Hold out for 2. Inhale, right nostril, slow motion. Hold in for 2. Close off, release, exhale left. Hold out for 2. Straight spine. Follow the breath. Left nostril, hold in for 2. Close off, release, exhale right. Hold out for 2. Inhale, right nostril, hold for 2. Close off, release, exhale left, hold for 2. Bring the right hand down. Now let the body, let the autonomic nervous system breathe for you. Focus in the center of your head. You should feel like you're in a light flow state. Merging feeling and thought. Presence, relaxed, alert, awake. Notice all the spaces you can breathe into in your body that you couldn't 5 minutes ago, just from that simple technique on the brain. Notice the depth and the details of your exhale that you might not have been able to feel 5 minutes ago. In other words, you can push back in a loving, calm way against these sympathetic switches. How was that?
I could speak for myself. I feel like, ooh, it's like, it feels like cane sugar, not high fructose corn syrup. It feels, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like
That's fun.
I feel grounded. So there's two really good techniques, whether, at work, rest, or play. Lengthen the exhale, hold, tell your sympathetic nervous system, you're the CEO, you're in control, you're burning fat, you're giving your body energy to do all the things it has to do when it's tired and you don't have time to rest, because you're not adding a stress response on top of the wonderful, amazing things our body does all day long, all night long, because it has our back. Amazing. And with that, ladies, and if there's a gentleman, I don't know, but if anybody listening to the recording, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you so
time
much.
tonight and for being our audience. This recording will be available on renegade.pro. The evaluation will be loaded by Friday onto your profile. Just click, click, click. You'll get a certificate. It will be stored on your profile. And don't forget to check out the podcast that Ed and all the dirty little secrets from his past. I'm just kidding. But you get a more in-depth introduction to Ed and his all the amazing how he's really brought Eastern and Western breath sciences together, and then the breath is medicine course. You need 30 hours. That's a good one. That'll last you for your life and change your patients' lives as well. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Ed. That was amazing.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Renegades.